Yes, we're back to review the start of Celtic season. We've just played the Veolia Trophy in France, and while it was a tragic weekend for the club, with Steven Gerrard's Rangers finally beating us to a trophy, there were certainly plenty of other positives to take from the weekend. We played some wonderful football and got to see some of the fringe players as well. That's what's coming up on today's video on the 67 Hail Hail channel on YouTube. Now, just our usual shout, if you've not yet managed to subscribe to the channel, we really would appreciate you doing that. It will take literally 4 or 5 seconds out of your day, and the benefits you'll have when you do that is that you won't miss out on any future uploads that we post on the channel, and believe me, there's going to be a lot of them in the coming weeks and months. Now, I was obviously being a little bit facetious at the start of the video, talking about the fact that Rangers had finally beaten us to a trophy. Obviously, pre-season doesn't matter at all. Everyone knows that. If you ever needed it reaffirmed, you only have to look back at season 2010. 20,000 odd Celtic fans trekked down to Wembley to see Tony Mowbray's side lift the Wembley Cup. We beat Al Ahly 5-0, and then Tottenham Hotspur with our reserve team. We played a reserve team against Spurs, beat them 2-0 to lift that trophy. Everyone thought that was a sign of the good things to come under Mowbray, only for us to have probably the most disastrous season in the 21st century. So that just tells you why you shouldn't pay any attention to pre-season results. They're all about performance and fitness, and that's what we're going to focus on today's video, with 5 things we learned from our 2 games in France. Now, as we know, on Saturday night we played Moussa Dembele's Lyon. We went down 2-1 in that game, although it's probably fairer to categorise the game as one of 60 minutes and one of 30 minutes. We lost the first one with our reserves 2-0 to Lyon, while in the last 30 minutes Neil Lennon made all the changes and brought the first team back, and they won that 1-0 through a late Mo El Yunusi goal. One thing that was really evident when we changed the players around, and it was evident everywhere on the pitch, but especially up front where we looked a totally different team with Odsonne Edouard in comparison to Patrick Klimala. Now, that's nothing against Klimala, who I thought gave a good account of himself over the 2 games that he played in the Lyon tournament, but the difference when Edouard came on, the way he was able to back in and hold the ball in, even though Edouard didn't have too many touches, just the whole difference in the way the game was played. It was almost akin to the Betfred Cup final when he came on and replaced, I think it was Lewis Morgan against Rangers, and the difference there you saw was palpable. So yes, the difference when Edouard came on as opposed to Klimala was massive. When you add to the fact that Bayo is injured again and no one really knows what his future is at Celtic Park, and Lee Griffiths is clearly at breaking point with Neil Lennon with regards to his own fitness and the way he's acted during the pandemic in terms of not being in the best shape he could be, then you've got massive fears if Odsonne Edouard was to get injured. I mean, if that doesn't send shivers down your spine, then I don't know what will. Imagine Edouard was to get a really bad injury in the coming weeks and we were forced to play someone like Klimala in domestic matches and even more so in European qualifiers. It's a worrying thought, and that's why for me we have to enter the transfer market and get another striker in, because we need a second option. It's not going to be as good as Edouard, but we need someone who's capable of coming in and scoring goals, and I think we've really got to press on with that because the league season is starting in a matter of weeks and you never know what's round the corner. Edouard's got injured in the past, and obviously we're praying nothing happens there again, but it's a long season to hope for a player not to get an injury at any point. I found it interesting that as Neil Lennon changed virtually his entire team for the game against Lyon at the start, there was one constant from the last game, and it was Scott Bain. Now, he obviously doesn't think either Ross Doohan or Connor Hazard are good enough as number 2s, which is a problem in itself, because if Bain was to get an injury, then he'd be forced to play someone who he doesn't even think is good enough to play in a friendly against Lyon in a competitive match. But even more so, Is Scott Bain the answer? Many Celtic fans, including myself, don't think so. If he wasn't good enough last season for Neil Lennon, then why would he be good enough this season? It would be a clear downgrade on Fraser Forster. And for me, without wanting to rant too much and without knowing the inner details of what's going on at Celtic Park, the club have left this far too long to get a replacement for Fraser Forster. At the point of recording, the league season is going to start in less than 2 weeks, and we don't yet have a replacement for Forster. If Bain is that replacement, then come out and say that or show that. But even then, we need another keeper in to supplement that. But for me, we're going to sign another keeper, but when is it going to happen? We've left this too late, and does it mean that we're perhaps holding out to try and get Forster? Doesn't seem like that's going to happen, but I would always, be cautious about saying that the deal is off completely, because we've seen in the past how quickly deals can come on and off. We only have to think back to David Turnbull last year. But as I say, the club have taken far too long at this. They need to deal with this now. We can't wait all day in Forster. Equally, we probably can't rely on Bain for the season. So go and sort it now. You've literally got a couple of weeks before the start of the biggest season in God knows how many decades. Go and do it. Deal with it, Celtic. Now, after watching copious amounts of closed-door football across the continent over the last couple of months, probably a bit like you, I was a little bit sceptical, or certainly intrigued by the prospect of watching Celtic in a closed-door match. Now, I know that neither the game against Nice nor Lyon were fully behind closed doors. There was some fans there, but the Nice game especially, I think there was a couple of hundred in the stadium, and they were very quiet due to being mainly Lyon fans, and obviously the game being between Nice and Celtic. But I actually didn't find it bad at all. It was a virtually closed door match, but I found it quite interesting, the fact that Celtic were playing. I didn't feel too occupied by anything else. I wasn't thinking about the fact it was a closed door match too much. Obviously the game on Saturday night was a bit louder. Lyon had their ultras in the ground, and if that proved anything, it proved that a small amount of fans, probably a couple of hundred, can make so much noise in a game. And if that's not motivation to try and get some sort of support into Celtic Park in the coming months, then I don't know what is, because even a couple of hundred Celtic fans making a bit of noise is much better than complete silence for the players. So it was interesting in that regard, the Veolia Trophy. But even if we can't get fans into games, I think the fact that we're watching Celtic in such a historic season will make sure that we're focused on the game and not thinking too much about fans. In short, it seems to matter a lot more when your team's playing than not, as far as closed door games go. Now, disclaimer, I am recording this prior to PSG probably putting 7 goals past us yet again. But French football, come on, it's not that good, is it? You look at the way Nice played, and this was a team who had already played 2 friendlies prior to playing ourselves, and we outplayed them for long parts of the game. They had virtually their whole team out for a lot of the game. We didn't. Lyon were a bit better, but that's a Champions League last 8 team. And even then, when we brought on our top team in the 60th minute mark, we dominated them for the majority of the end of that game, and were perhaps unfortunate not to get a draw out of it. So, yeah, not massively impressed by French football. If you add into that, obviously, Rennes last season in competitive games, this was a team that finished 3rd in the French top flight, and we took 4 points from 6 against them in the Europa League. So, if we're going to draw a French team in Europe this season, providing it's not the Parisians of PSG, then I wouldn't be massively worried about it at all. I don't think it's a particularly strong league, and if Celtic were to play in that league, I think we'd be challenging for a Champions League place, 2nd, 3rd place, something like that. Right, I'm going to end the debate now. Greg Taylor is our number 1 left back, ahead of Bolingoli, and rightfully so. I've been really impressed with Taylor I think he's played 90 minutes combined over the 2 matches so far. I think he's looked really good. His crossing's been good. But the biggest aspect where he excels in comparison to Bolingoli is his defensive ability. Take the Lyon goal, for example. I think it was the second goal, Depay's goal, when Bolingoli is just caught totally unaware of where he is in the pitch. I don't think that happens with Greg Taylor. He's got a much more defensive-minded attitude to the game, and I think that's the basic level that he can build on going forward. And his attacking play's been better than Bolingoli as well. His crossing's much better, his final ball. And I just think the way he interchanges with his teammates is much better as well. So I'm really hoping Greg Taylor can kick on from what is just effectively a good start. 90 minutes, as I say, it's nothing he's played, but hopefully when it gets into the games that start to matter, he can really build on this. And I've got high hopes for Greg Taylor this season. As far as ball and goalie goes, I'm a bit stuck. I know that it's only a pre-season tournament and I shouldn't be too harsh on him. I should probably cut him a little bit of slack, but I am concerned. I just don't think he's got it to play for Celtic. You may disagree, let me know in the comments if I'm being too harsh, but the positive that I'll finish this video is that Greg Taylor has probably surprised me more than any player so far this season. Hopefully he can build on it and become our first choice left back this season.